Hello, hello, everyone. It is Wednesday, my favorite day, and we're back with our series. I love Wednesdays, Hannah. Don't you? Because every day, every Wednesday, we get to come back with something important and fun
I
and exciting.
know, I know. And every time I'm like, oh, this is a really good one. This is a really good one. This one's important right now. But all of them kind of are important in their own way, which is why we pick these topics. So I'm excited to get into this one.
Yeah, because today we're going to talk about a cost that doesn't show up on any invoice, but it affects almost every single buyer. It's the cost of indecision. I'm indecisive all the time, right? And it costs me money when I am. When buyers think about international property, they usually focus on risk. What if I choose the wrong market? What if the price drops? What if I move too early? But very few people ask the opposite question. And what is that? It's the cost of waiting, right? We never think about what is the cost of actually waiting. Because while waiting feels safe, it's not neutral and opportunities do change. So I'm Stephanie Gillison. I am the co-founder of Airdomo. This is my partner, Hannah Maverick, and I'm excited about talking about this topic today. So let's get in.
Me too, Stephanie. Like you said, opportunities change, the markets move, the access shifts, and over time, doing nothing can quietly become one of the most expensive decisions of all. So today we're going to break down how that happens and how smart buyers think about timing without the rushing. And I think it's an important topic, especially in the market today. It feels like being careful, it feels like being responsible, but in global real estate, hesitation often comes from trying to eliminate all uncertainty. And that's something that never really fully happens. And we've talked about risk before. So today we're going to reframe the waiting period, not as safety, but as a decision with its own consequences, right? So let's start with the psychology, my favorite part. Why do buyers delay even when they're interested?
No, because buying internationally introduces layers of complexity, right? Buyers are thinking about all the different legal systems. They're unfamiliar with the market, the currency exposure, long-term commitment, right? We all have a fear of long-term commitment. So the natural instinct is to wait for more clarity. They tell themselves, if I wait until I'm more certain, or I'll wait until I understand everything, I'll wait for the perfect deal. This one's just not quite there yet. But in reality, perfect clarity never comes, you guys. We know this, right? We know this. We learn this over and over, but it's still something that we live with. And so waiting often becomes a default, not a strategy. It's what we all fall into. It's the trap.
Yes, and the intention I think is good. It's just that the outcome isn't always. So let's talk about that. What actually happens when buyers wait?
Well, three things typically happen. First, price moves, right? Markets do not stand still. Entry points change. And look, everyone wants that price to come down, but a lot of times the prices go up. So you don't want to wait too long. Second, your options narrow. The best inventory is always often absorbed early, okay? The choices available later are different. Sometimes they're the less attractive choices, right? And you have to settle for what you could have had the best. You're settling for much less. Third, external factors shift, currency changes. We talked about this last Wednesday on last Wednesday's webinar, how currency, the change in it affects value. And then residency programs evolve. We talk about residency, I think, almost every single Wednesday. Now you could buy a property and be granted residency, but next month that could change. Tax structures adjust. All of these things can change. So waiting does not preserve the same opportunity. It absolutely changes it. And so that's why if it feels right now, that's when you need to jump on it.
Yeah, the decision isn't really buy now or later. It's buy this opportunity or a different one later when it looks different, it feels different, and the floor is probably a lower one.
That's right.
So let's talk about the opportunity cost in some real terms, make it more concrete. How does opportunity cost show up financially?
Well, opportunity costs can show up in so many different ways. For example, missing appreciation in a growing market, losing rental income over time, entering later at a higher price point, reduced purchasing power due to currency shifts. We keep bringing that up, but it's because we want to pound it into your head. It's that important. Even a modest annual price increase compounds significantly over a few years. And what feels like waiting safely can quietly become entering more expensively.
And that's the part that people don't feel immediately, but it accumulates over time. So, Stephanie, what kind of advantage do buyers gain by acting earlier rather than later?
This is my favorite word. I use this word a lot in conversation, in how you speak to people, in your negotiation, and I'm going to use it right now. They gain in positioning. You're putting yourself in the right position, and that's called the position of power. Early buyers often benefit from the lower entry prices, right? We all want to save money. We have a much wider selection. We get to pick and choose the setting that we want, the view that we want, the location that we want, the fewer steps, whatever the case might be, the stronger long-term upside. But more importantly, we gain time in the market. And time is one of the most powerful drivers of real estate performance. That's what you need to gain, is that time, because buying early, costs will go up, right? And what you're buying is appreciation as well.
It's not just about timing the market, it's about being in the market actually.
Yeah.
So this is where buyers get stuck, the balance between patience and action. How do you balance that?
Well, smart buyers don't rush, but they also don't wait for perfection. We all know perfection just doesn't exist. But here's what we look for: alignment with goals, strong fundamentals, manageable downside. Okay. We don't want everything to be horrendous, but it can be managed. A clear structure. Once those are in place, they move forward. They accept the uncertainty, will always exist, but we also don't let it prevent action. Okay. So, meaning we know it's not going to be the perfect picture, but it's enough that we can move forward. We're not going to let the minor details of the risk prevent us from ever doing anything. And that's, we run into that all the time, where people just don't do, right? Because they're scared of it all.
And that's a very different mindset from trying to eliminate all risk, which is basically impossible. So let's quickly touch on the shift from fear to strategy. How do buyers shift from that hesitation to confident decision making?
Well, they stop asking, what if something goes wrong? And then instead of that, they ask, does this decision make sense, even if things aren't perfect, right? They focus on structure, flexibility, long-term alignment. Confidence doesn't come from certainty. It comes from preparation. I always like to take this back, and don't get mad at me, audience, for saying this, but if you put it into this perspective, you go back to when you're dating, okay? You might have had a list growing up of the perfect human being you wanted to be in a relationship with, but who out there checks all boxes? It's just impossible. You can't live up to that. That's how property is as well too. So does that kind of make sense?
It definitely makes sense. And it comes to exactly that real life example. What are you willing to compromise on? And then going off of that, it's never going to be perfect.
Right.
So I think that's what we talk to about our clients as well. What are the things that you're willing, that you have wiggle room on in your mind? And we take it from there. But that's when hesitation really starts to disappear, because the decision starts being more and more grounded. You think about what you want, you think about what you need, and you think about what's nice to have, right? So if someone is currently in that waiting phase, what should they do?
Well, let's go back to asking the three questions. If I wait 12 to 24 months, what might change? And in what direction is it going to change? Right? Am I waiting for clarity, or am I avoiding a decision altogether? Does this opportunity align with my goals today? If the fundamentals are strong and the alignment is clear, waiting may not add any value. I have a couple that I see repeatedly, constantly, and I have seen them for 7 years. And I know every time I see them, they're never going to buy anything because they cannot make a decision. And they have been looking for 7 years. And you all, this isn't about global real estate. This is about them living in a home together. For 7 years, they have not made that decision. What are they waiting for? Right?
Yeah, that is. I know you have so many stories like these, and I keep saying this, we need to make a story time.
Story time.
So we'll definitely do that in the coming weeks. But what this conversation here really highlights is that waiting is not that neutral decision that buyers sometimes think that it is. It's really an active one that comes with its own consequences. So for everyone who's watching, if you have been exploring international property but just haven't moved forward yet and you need some time to push that needle, it may be worth reevaluating whether waiting is helping or if it's quietly costing you. So on airdomo.com, you can explore opportunities across multiple global markets, and you can start seeing what's available today. And if you'd like that support, we're always here. You can book a complimentary call with us where we will evaluate the opportunity strategically so you can move forward with clarity and not that hesitation that's quietly costing you. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next session.
And let's not forget to tell them, go to airdomo.com and do the Domo Match survey. And let's see what that tells you about moving forward and where to move forward at too. So until next time, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.